I'm glad to introduce Mr. Mufti Islam that's going to talk about the will in the UK, what, why, and how.
Hello everyone. Assalamu alaikum. My name is Mufti Islam Nafis. I'm a solicitor of England and Wales. I do welcome all of you today to hear my lecture. Today I will talk about wills. Before I go to the wills, the main part, how, why we should make a will, I would like to discuss about the intestacy rule of the United Kingdom. When I say intestacy rule, the word it does mean that if someone die in the United Kingdom, how his property will be divided among to his family, his or her family members. So that is called intestacy rule. Now, first of all, I would like to discuss why it is important to make a will. What is the reason behind this? Because many people doesn't think about it, even though most of the people understand what is will, but they think that is a very complicated process, why it is required for, or they actually don't bother, or they never think about it, how his property will be distributed or divided among his families. So what will happen if someone die in the United Kingdom? If someone die, how his property will be divided, right? So there's an intestacy rule and there's a will. So if someone leave the property without a will, then the intestacy rule will apply. Now the concern is that if someone doesn't want to follow the intestacy rule of the United Kingdom, but he wants to make his own wishes about his property, what he gonna do? How he can do it? So that is why actually will is required. The will is a simple wish of a person which he wants to distribute or divide his property among others after he's dead. So most important thing is the will is not applicable until someone die. So if you make a will, and this will be effective after someone die. There's some other things which is very important to think why we need to make a will. Say for example, is an unmarried partner. When I say unmarried partner, there are many people who are living together, they are cohabiting together in the United Kingdom, but they are not legally married. Or sometimes in our community, we see that they are married as a Muslim marriage, but they are not registered as in the UK marriage. So then it might be treated as an unmarried partner. So what will happen to your unmarried partner if you die? Because according to the intestacy rule of the United Kingdom, the unmarried partner cannot get a property unless there is a will. Then arrangement for children. Because most of the viewers in here is Muslim, I guess, or any other religion, that is not issue, but everyone has a wish. Like say for example, someone who is a 60 years old, he has a lot of property, but what does he want? He found that among his 4 children, right? Among his 4 children, one is very weak, one is not very successful. So he thought that I wish if I could leave some more property for my that son who is not that much, who doesn't earn that much money. So it will be good for his future or good for the rest of the families. So this is his wish. But how are you going to do it? Because if someone die without a will, the intestacy rule will apply. And according to the intestacy rule is different than your wish. That is why we need will. And asset distribution according to your wish. Like intestacy rule is a very straightforward, and if someone die without a will, it will be straightforward followed by the intestacy rule. But if you want to give someone else who are not benefited by the intestacy rule, what are you going to do? Say for an example, you want to give some property to someone who is a relative who live in the UK, but they're very poor. You want to give some property after you die. According to the intestacy rule of the United Kingdom, it will not happen. But if you write down a valid will, and after you die, right, that friend or that person you want to give some property, According to your will, he will be the beneficiary. This is all your wish. What do you want to do with your assets after your death? Now I move to my next slide, which is Islamic will. Every religion has a different way how property will be inherited after the death. Accordingly, the Islamic will, there is a rule which is written in Surah Nisa in Al-Quran. The most important paragraph is paragraph 11. I will say a summary of that paragraph because many people who are Muslims in the United Kingdom and they want to distribute their property in Islamic way, but they don't know actually how it will happen or whether is it possible to happen or not. So if someone want to do an Islamic will, Islamic way he want to distribute his property, it is possible. And the main theory of Islamic will, which we almost many people know, that one son, if there is a 3 children, one son, 2 daughters, so one son will get half and other 50% will be divided among the 2 daughters. So one son will get the same property what the 2 daughters together get it. See if I'm able to manage to explain to you. But there are some other rules as well, like how in Surah Nisa it is explained how your parents will get a property, how your children, grandchildren would get a property, or if there's an orphanage you want to give some gift, how that will be divided. So these all things are written in Islamic in Surah Nisa. So many people in our community who, even if in my practical life I have seen, people doesn't know about it. Because someone made, like say for an example, someone made a lot of property, but he doesn't know actually, and he wants his property to be distributed by Islamic way. He doesn't want to give the property as the intestacy rule of the United Kingdom. It's his own wish. He wants to follow Islamic will. Yes, the answer is yes. It is possible in the United Kingdom to make a will in Islamic way. There's no legal battle or no legal issues here, as long as you make a valid will. I'll move to the next paragraph. I will talk about the intestacy rule before I go to the main part of the will, because we have to understand it will help to both of us. Because first question at the beginning I ask, why do we need to make a will? And if you do not understand the background information of the United Kingdom about the intestacy rule, we will not understand whether is it important to make the will or not. Because some people might be happy with the intestacy rule of the United Kingdom. Now, the person who died without making a will is called intestate person, and his property is called estate. So now, according to the intestacy rule of the United Kingdom, the first 270,000 pounds of the whole property will go straight away to your partner, your living partner. And then personal belongings will go to your living partner. And if there is anything remaining, it will be divided among your children. Now the concern is that if someone died, intestate person, who has a property of only 250,000 pounds only. So if someone has only 250,000 pounds, this 250,000 pounds will all go to your spouse or your partner, your living partner. But if it is more than 270,000 pounds, then it will be divided. First 270,000 pounds worth property or money will go to your partner, and the remaining from the rest of the property or rest of the money or rest of the assets, from that asset, 50% go again to your partner, and the rest of them, 50%, will be divided among your children. So this is how the intestacy rule of the United Kingdom works. Now the concern is with the will or Islamic will or your wish. If you do not like the way it has been distributed in the United Kingdom or the rule of the land, which is intestacy rule of the United Kingdom, if you do not want to follow that, or if you want to follow a different wish, or if you have a different wish, what are you going to do? The answer is you have to make a will. And the will is important for each and every person of the whole world. The reason behind this, we do not know actually when we're going to die. There are many information we need to know about the will. And this is very important for everyone's lives. Now, in the United Kingdom, like there's a two way to own a property. One is joint tenancy and other is tenancy in common. Now, say for an example, like me, I bought a property jointly with my wife's name, right? That's called joint tenancy. When we say joint tenancy, that means that there's no specific share of the property. So according to intestacy rule of the United Kingdom, there is a property where me and my wife jointly own this property. According to the rule of the land or rule of the United Kingdom, because it's a joint tenancy property, after I die, the whole property will go straight away to my wife. Okay, even if it is more than 270, even if it's £1 million. So, and it is a joint tenancy, it will go straight away to my wife. Now, there's another way to own a property in the United Kingdom. It's called tenancy in common. So tenancy in common is that, say for an example, same example, me and my wife own a property where I have 55% share of this property. My wife has 45% share of this property. And if I own, as I own this property as a joint tenant, which is 55%, and this 55% worth, say for example, £300,000, just for an example to explain. So this 55% worth £300,000. So from this £300,000 worth property, which is in joint common, which I am the owner of the tenancy in common, the first £270,000 will go straight away to my wife, and then the remaining from that remaining £30,000, half will go to my wife, and the remaining £15,000 will be divided equally among to my children. So this is how it works in joint tenancy, in tenancy in common. Now, many people might not be happy with this type of joint tenancy or tenancy in common. They want their own wish. But the important thing is that in joint tenancy, the property will straight away go to your wife after you die. But in tenancy in common, the property will be divided according to the will, or the will is applicable. Okay, these all things are very important to understand. Even if when you buy a property, if you go to the solicitor will ask you how you want to hold this property or how you want to own this property. Do you want the property in your own name, or you want to include your wife? Or is a joint tenant property or tenancy in common? Because according to your instruction, the solicitor have to register your interest of the property to the land registry. And why it is concerned in this lecture, because the way you own the property either is joint tenancy or tenancy in common, it will impact to your children once you die, how the property will be divided. So that's why people have to know what is joint tenancy and tenancy in common. Now, I have given an example where I can explain to you again. So say for example, Tom and Heather are married and own their flat jointly, beneficial joint tenant. So they are joint tenant. They have a child. Tom dies intestate, leaving the jointly owned flat or £300,000 and £50,000 of share in his own name. So now how it will be dealt with? So it is a joint tenancy example. So someone owns £300,000 as a joint tenant and £50,000 in shares in his own name. So try to understand the difference. One is joint tenant, £300,000, and other part, 50,000 share is in own name. How it will be distributed? The property will go straight away automatically to Heather because he owns this property as a joint tenant. So I told you earlier, if someone owned a joint tenancy and if someone died, automatically it will go to the living partner who is surviving. £50,000 will also, because we have talked about if it is more than 270,000 pounds. In that case, only the residue property or remaining property will go to the children. So this is how it divides. I've given another example. So if you guys are interested, you can have a look and can understand to how does it works, joint tenancy and tenancy in common. Now the close relatives. It will be provided to the, according to intestacy rule of the United Kingdom, that your close relatives will get some property as well. When we say close relatives, they have defined as a children or grandparent, whether they are close relatives or not. Yes, they are close relatives. Now, say for an example, a situation where the couple who is where the couple they don't have a children, so all the assets will go to the partner. Now, a couple, someone died from the family, and there's a partner is living partner, and there's the 2 children. So it will be divided according to the intestacy rule. So the surviving partner will get the first 270,000 pounds with personal belongings, and remaining will be divided equally. First 50% will go to this living partner, and the 50% will be divided among the children. So this is how it will work. Now, there are some few notes which is important for everyone to know. We will see sometimes, like in the United Kingdom, in this situation we do face, like someone is living together, there's a child, but they're not married. So what will happen? They are not registered as a civil partnership as well. So now in this case, the children can also inherit the property. But because the wife is not, or sorry, the partner is not registered, the marriage was not registered, she will not get. But because the child, if it is the biological parent or biological child of the person who died, then that child will get a property. Adopted child can also get a property according to the intestacy rule. A grandchildren, a grandchildren can also get a property from the intestacy rule, subject to some conditions apply. Now, let's move on to the main part where we are talking about the common mistakes, or why do we need a will, and what are the common mistakes that we need to consider. Most of the time, the problem happen, like people make a will just because they are not aware of the wills, how does it works. They're not aware of how the policy will work, or how the will should be valid. The will become invalid because they didn't follow the rules of the wills how to create the wills. The will become invalid. And if it is invalid, then there's no point, like this will not be applicable. So now the common mistakes in making a will are not being aware of the formal requirement needed to make a will legally valid. There's some formal requirements. What is the formal requirements? I'll come to the point, which is, I can say, which is like the person who is making this will, right? He needs to be 18 or over, and he has to make this will without pressure. There should be 2 beneficiaries, and there should be 1 executor. These are the important formal requirements to make a valid will. So if these are any of these thing is absent from the will, that will may not be valid. Sometimes people make a will, but the problem is that they might have missed some of the assets or properties. So that way the will there are some mistakes in the will. So when we consider to make a will, we have to consider all the property of the will, or all the property that the person have. Otherwise, someone might challenge in the future, or someone might challenge that the will is invalid or something else. And then in that case, if the will is challenged by someone, then it will be decided into the court. So there's some thing that in the will, the person need to write it down, that what is his intention clearly, not ambiguous way. If it is an ambiguous way, then again someone might challenge who's supposed to be beneficiaries or who think that he is a beneficiary, he might challenge and can prove, and the court might give an order that this is not a valid will. So these are the important. Now, people has an understanding or wrong conception that if I make a will, I cannot change it. No, this is not the case. Say for an example, today I made a will, and then tomorrow I decided, no, I will change that will. Yes, the answer is yes, you can change a will, but in the new will, you have to write it down the other will. All previous will is invalid. There's a legal term or there's a wording which we need to write it down in the will, which means that your all previous will or previously you made a will be invalid or ineffective. So you can make a will as much as you want, but the last will be applicable or valid. There's some people who are in our community, or some people we find it out like they're living together with like they have the way that Muslim marriage happen generally, where the two witness, the man and women, they're happy with the witness, they agreed to get married and they're living together. But the problem is that they're living their happily good life, they're having good life, and someone died from that family. I mean, among the couple, someone died. Now the concern is that because they are not registered marriage, right? The marriage is not registered. The lady who, or the man, gentleman who is surviving, he will be treated as an unmarried partner. So the problem is that the person who died, he never thought about it, that his wife will never, or his wife or partner will never get his property from his assets. He never had a thought about it. But it's gonna happen because their marriage was not registered at all anytime. When we make a will, we need to be careful that what is my intention, what property I want to give to whom. That should be clear. And we have to cover all the property, not only like, say, for example, someone has a 3 property or someone has a 1 property and with a lot of cash or share of ownership, he's just making a will for only 1 property, but remaining he didn't think about it, or he just overlooked those things. So if this is the situation, then the whole purpose of making the will be invalid, might be invalid. So that's why actually the will is something where someone can make it, any person can make it. But the question is always concerned about whether that will be valid or not. So this is why actually it's advisable to use a solicitor. Most of the times in complex nature cases, even if it's a simple nature cases, there's some formalities we need to follow. When I say formality, like intention of the person who is making the will, two witness, executor, and the beneficiary. So these all things should be included, and the all assets. And sometimes, like even if it's a simple will, sometimes it becomes complicated or it might be invalid. Therefore, it is always advisable to use a solicitor, to make a will. And if for some reason, right, someone make a will and it become valid, or it become, or later stage after the person died, it challenged the court, someone challenged to the court and it become invalid, the whole purpose is gone. So this is why it's advisable to use a solicitor. And most interestingly, the solicitor doesn't charge that much to the will, but obviously depending on the complexity of the will, solicitor do charge, but generally it is not very expensive. So it is advisable to go to the solicitor before you make your will, because once you go to someone expert person, they will explain to you what is will, why you want to make a will, and these all things. Mainly, say for example, in my personal life, when I have seen like people come to me who wants to make a Islamic will, right? But being as I'm a solicitor of the United Kingdom, obviously I'm not very much expert about the Islamic will. So what I do always, obviously I inform everything to my client. And also, once I make the draft of the will, I do ask to my client to take it to someone who is Islamic scholar, right? So he does check it and he said, yes, it's your wish is written over there, is following the Islamic will, then come to us and then we sign the will. So these are the very important. If someone properly intended to any specific thoughts or school of thoughts they want to follow. Like from Christian religion or Hindu religions, there's some other way that the people inherit their property. So it's all the wishes, but whoever is following which thought or which religion or whoever wants what, they can follow. But yes, the will is possible. Their wish will be applicable. I mean, their wish will be executed if they can make a valid will. Now the concern I've talked about, like it should be covered when someone make a will, all the property should be included in the will, and that way it will cover everything, and then your wish, your beneficiaries will get benefit from the will, because the purpose of the will is for the beneficiaries, not for the person who is dead, because he is a deceased, he cannot do anything. All right, the purpose of the will is to get benefited from your asset to your whoever you wants to give. So now the concern is that what should be included in the will, how much money and what property and possession you have. For an example, property, saving, occupational, personal pension, insurance policy, bank building society accounts, shares, these all things should be included. Now the next concern is that who you want to benefit. You should make a list of the people. Like say for an example, I come to my same example which I gave earlier. Like 4 out of 4 children, one child is not doing very good. So you want to give some more property to the youngest child or one child compared to other 3 children. You have to write it down for your first son, his name, his date of birth, his address, and what do you want to give it to him. Then second paragraph, you need to write down your second child name, his date of birth, his identification, and then write in your will, what do you want to give it to him. Accordingly, for your 4th child, who you think that he is not very successful, or you want to give some more property to him, you write down what you really want to give it to him, and should be clear. It should not be ambiguous. If it is ambiguous, because there are other 3 beneficiaries, they might change their mind, they might change the intention, and they might challenge to the court that this will is not valid, or someone might challenge, or any beneficiaries may challenge, like the person who made the will, or the deceased person make the will, this will is not valid because he made it under pressure. So these are the important things. Now, one concern is that if someone, like say for an example, I made a will and I died, but my children, who is just like say for example, he or she is under 18, what will happen to my underage child? Because I'm not in the picture. I mean, I'm not in the world. I'm dead. So what will happen? Even if I made a will for him or her, for that child, but how it will be executed? Now the question: who should look after any children under 18? You can write it down. You can write it down under will that yes, if I die before 18, this is the person where I'm giving the responsibility to take care of my children until he is under 18. And then once he's under 18, then all the beneficiaries property you're talking about, to give it to him according to your it will go to that child once he become 18. But before 18, no. So once your beneficiaries become 18, he or she will get the benefit of your will, and he will possess whatever the property. And the executor is the person who will do these all things. Now the concern is that who is going to sort out the estate and carry out your wishes as set out in the will? These people are known as executor. So executor is the person where you are giving him responsibility to execute your will. Say for an example, you have a 3 property and you have a 3 son. You have a 4 property and you have a 3 children, 1 wife. So you want to say, okay, that big property or the expensive property, I want to give it to my wife, and the 3 property among 3 children. So now the concern is who will execute? Who will make it execute through the court or through the probate that these things will be divided? That's called executor. So the executor is one of the very vital person in your will. It can be anyone. Executor can be anyone who is over 18, who is sound mind, and who has given consent that he's happy to be your executor. These are the important things for your executor. So if someone is happy to be your executor, yes, you can select him. Now, who are executors, who to choose executor, and where to keep a will. These are the very important things as well. Like say for an example, I have chosen one of my friend as an executor. Okay, so if I say I'm around 40 years old, my friend will be around 40 years old as well. So I have chosen one person, like, yes, my friend, you're my very good friend. I do believe you. I will make you my executor. And he said, yes, I'm happy with that. Now the problem is that, like say for example, because we are almost the same age, so what will happen? Like say for example, if I die tomorrow, and then after a few weeks, my friend died as well. So the executor is dead as well. So how it will be happen? Who will execute this? So there is a complication will arise. It's possible, but the complication will arise. So my experience and my personal opinion is that if someone want to make a will, choose the executor who is younger than you. Who is younger than you? So if I want to make a will, say for an example, I'm 35, 38, or 40, I will choose someone who is at least 10 years or 15 years younger than me. The reason behind this, obviously, it's not possible to say who will die when. There is no guarantee of this world. Like who will die, and I can die tomorrow, or maybe my executor might die before me. It may happen. But it's a general expectation of the people. If everything is normal, right? The person who is younger than me, who will die later, and because I'm older, I will die late. I will die earlier. So this is the way. It's better to select an executor who is younger than you. This is what I'm talking about, who to choose as executor. And he must be obviously sound mind. He must need a consent. He must give a consent, and he's happy to do that one. Now, you have made a will. You have done everything. Where do you want to keep the will? The problem is another again concept. It's a wrong concept of the people. People doesn't think about it. That's a problem, you know. So where to keep a will? So I say, for an example, I made a will and I didn't say to anyone where I keep this will. What I did, I just put it in my locker, or I put it somewhere. So after I die, or after my death, no one would come to know where is my will. Then what's the point to make this will? If someone cannot find it out, or after my death, no one knows where is my will, then how it will be executed? So that is most important. After my death, if I want to if I want to distribute my wishes, if I want to give my wishes, then obviously I have to tell people that I have to tell at least few people, one or two people, that yes, I have made a will. I kept the will to somewhere else, any specific places of the house, or to someone, or to a solicitor, or to someone who is like wherever you believe that he is the person who is good, the will would be safe. You can give it to them. So this is what you can do. Now, where requirements for a valid will? So if you want to make a will, and if it is not a valid, then all the purpose is vanished. So there's no point you make this will. In order for a will to be valid, there are certain requirements, formal requirements that you have to follow. One is the person who will make the will, he must be 18 years old or over. So if someone is under 18, he cannot make a will. And the will should be made voluntarily. When I say voluntarily, without pressure, that means that no one made any pressure on me to make a will. So what I meant, what exactly happened in the reality is that how it happened, because when we see in our practice life, we face this type of issues. Like you made a will and there are 3 beneficiaries, and one beneficiary is telling you because he's getting less property from the will, so he's telling it to others, or he's telling to the court, look, this will, my dad, my mother made it, but she or he was under pressure. That's why he made this will. If something like that happened, then obviously court need to consider whether it is true or not, or court will try to find the intention of the parties. That is why the will it has to be clear that it is voluntary will and it has been created by without any pressure from any other person. So these all things are important, because when we talk, when as a professional, when we talk to our client regarding the will, we do make sure that our client is making this will voluntarily and without pressure from any other pressure. Because sometimes in practice life, I've seen like the beneficiary come with us, with our client who wants to make a will, and then it's very difficult to understand whether the person who is making the will, whether he is in pressure or not. Because maybe one son, he wants more property, so that's why he wants to make a will, so that he will get more property and he wants to be more benefited from this will. This thing happens in the reality. So we need to make sure and concern, we need to be very careful about those things. So in this type of case, what we do, we always take the client outside, somewhere apart from that gentleman who is the beneficiary. We do speak with the client who wants to make a will. We try to understand whether there is any pressure or volunteer, whether there's a pressure on him to make a will or not. If he said no, he's all right, he's happy, he's doing this will voluntarily, and who is doing this will without pressure from any other person, we do make a will. Otherwise, we do advise to the people that even if you think that you make this will with pressure, someone pressure on you, this will may be challenged by someone to the court. So these are the important issue. Now, someone is a mental person or someone has some psychological problem, he cannot make a will. So someone needs to be sound mind. This means that he's aware or he understands why he's making will. Again, in my reality, in my practical, I have seen that one client came to me and he wants to make a will. But the problem is that he doesn't speak very well English. He doesn't understand. And I also don't understand either his language. So what I did as a solicitor, I have to make sure that he understands. Even if he's a sound mind, there's no mental issue he has or no other issues, but he doesn't understand English. So what I did, or as a solicitor, what I supposed to do, I have to appoint this interpreter who will explain to him or her about the will. And if he is happy or she is happy, then the will be applicable. Because again, in the reality, I have seen like someone who doesn't understand English, they made a will, and then once he died, other beneficiaries or any beneficiaries challenging this will and telling that yes, he made this will, but he doesn't understand English. So how did he make this will? So this will is not valid, and it's a good justifiable point to raise this concern. Yes, if someone doesn't understand English or doesn't speak English, how he made a will in English and why? How can you prove that he understood this will? So these are the concern and these are important issues. So it's better appoint another interpreter who understands the same language, who the interpreter will explain, and the solicitor should keep a note that yes, there was an appointment, interpreter was appointed, and then interpreter explained to him or her, and then he gave a consent to write this will. These are the important issues. Now, the will must be in writing and signed by the person who is making the will, and there should be 2 witnesses. The will should be signed in the presence of the 2 witnesses after it has been signed. So these 2 witnesses cannot be beneficiaries. If the witnesses are the beneficiaries or beneficiaries become the witness, what will happen? The beneficiaries will not get the benefit of the will. So this is another concern where people has a misconception. So what I'm telling this one again. So if someone is making a will and there's a beneficiary who become witness. So if he become witness, if he's a witness, then he will not get the benefit of the will. So it's better. So it should be avoidable. You should avoid the beneficiary should not sign in the will as a witness. That is very important issue as well. Now, I'll move to the next point. Change of circumstances. As I said earlier, that you can make your will later. If you can change your will as much as you want or as much as you can do it. There's no issue on it. So if you say, for example, you used to own a 3 property, you made a will, now you own some more property, like you have a 5 buildings or 5 property, now you want to change your will. Yes, you can do it. Now the question is that how to change your will? Yes, you can change your will by codicil. If it is a small amendments, you can do it referring with your first will, but it's better or it is avoidable to do codicil. It is better to make a new fresh will. It's advisable. So there is no confusion after your death. Now, what will happen? Say, for example, you made a will and now you have changed your mind and you don't want to make another will and you don't want this will to be effective. Simple answer is that you have to destroy the will. Destroying the will should be in front of you. Either you can destroy or someone else can destroy, but it should be destroyed. So these are the things actually most important in relation to the will. Now the concern is that if someone made a will and they don't know actually where, like say for example, someone made a will and no beneficiaries knows that whether there was any will or not, or whether there is a will made or not. So now to find it out, this is better to ask to the family, friends, or the person who used to live in the same property, tell to them whether he had told the deceased has told anything about the will or not. Sometimes you can sometimes if the deceased, if the person who made the will, that he can keep this will to the registry office, where there are few registry office all over the United Kingdom. You can keep those will to them, you will to these places, and after the death of the person, any beneficiaries, any person who is related with the dead person, he can apply to the registry office, and then it costs I think £5, or you can do it online and check it out whether there is any will or not. So these are the most important concern about the will.
Thank you for listening, and we hope to see you in the next session. Don't hesitate to follow us on our social media platforms as seen on this screen. For more updates and information on the Egyptians Together Union, please visit our official website on www.egyptianstogether.com. Also, for any questions or queries, please contact us via email on egyptianstogetheruk@gmail.com. Also, for more videos, please subscribe to our YouTube channel called Egyptians Together. Thank you for listening, and we hope to see you in the next session.